Yeah, hey, picked up by the SA side of things again. I think Prada is going to be right at home on the zombie. Just makes sense for a player like him. But I think also picking it up versus both the Mars and the Pugna, I think it's a fairly decent response. Just because, well, Mars is going to have to sit in. He has to stand still to kind of do his damage. You know, he runs at you, and the Dying can kind of help with that. Not as I think good as a counter as maybe the Shadow Demon, but Shadow Demon has its own slew of issues, especially versus Pugna. But that's also where any hero that gets decrept is going to have that horde of zombies just falling in behind you. You can't kill them, you can't walk away. So maybe it's a little bit of a counter, maybe it's just covering their lanes. We'll have to see because again, the Undying did not look so great earlier, but maybe it can turn itself around here and you're not playing versus an ultra mobile hero yet on the cut. I think that's where if the cut really want to work this Undying, pick up again that ultra mobile hero that is going to make it feel like Infinity. They need a new lockdown, and they do need lockdown. It can't just be the Storm Spirit show as much as we've seen it be that. But I think that's where, unfortunately, for Infinity, the Undying is not that setup I was almost alluding to for that Storm Spirit to kind of make his way in those side lanes.
And now, if you're the cut, you get to put yourself in a bit of an advantageous position here. They grab the Mars for themselves, who um, does not technically have to be their offlaner, but can fit into that slot quite nicely. So you can spend as much of phase two as you want, further sort of narrowing down that pool. See the Beastmaster taken away, the CK banned out. Infinity themselves actually removed the Sand King and the Dragon Knight, so just sort of keep whittling away at it, force Mariano onto something uncomfortable, and see what you can do from there. And I will say, after what we saw in the previous match, if the cut really are looking to further ban out some offlaners, I feel like the Timbersaw may be worth consideration at this point.
Yeah, and of course Mariano as well. You know, he does play Timber. You know he does. It's certainly something to be scared of. Not to mention, as we've seen a few times now, uh, Timbersaw does not care about the Pugna. He will just go and he will kill you and the Pugna if you're standing next to each other. But I do like this choice. There's your insta hex. That's your instant disable. Not to mention, you just plop down the wards on top of the tombstone. You have a little zombie versus snake off, and the snakes usually win that out. And this is also a kind of a problem with the Undying 5 is you need to get someone to break those shackles now. You need someone else that's going to have that long range disable. Otherwise, I don't want to call the Shadow Shaman almost like a better Bane, but that shackle can be its own Fiend's Grip if it needs to be.
Yeah, that's always the interesting thing. It really depends on the way that these fights are playing out, because sometimes your Shadow Shaman feels incredibly strong with the shackles. You don't even care that he can't move himself just because it just locks down exactly who you need when you need. Other times, the lack of mobility on your Shadow Shaman just kind of comes to bite you in the ass. So it'll depend on just how well this Shaman can position himself and how well the cut can actually take these fights. Because if they're the ones initiating, it should not matter.
Yeah, and meanwhile on Infinity, kind of looking at what they want. Good pick. That feels like an Infinity hero as well. And the big old tide. I mean, okay. They've certainly put more of a timer on themselves here. Rubik is a nice hero to anchor down lane, though. That's the hero that's going to take over after the tide leaves and usually becomes the defender of mid. And that's probably your layup here. But still, I think Infinity, at least play-wise, still very few and far between. I think the Tide is a big uptick in their team fight, as the Ravage will surely add to it, but we're getting a lot of that pressure, again, mounted on this Storm Spirit to not only be the initiator whenever that Ravage is on cooldown, but to also be a large brunt of your damage here, for at least for the early stages. It's a little bit concerning, I'm not going to lie, but you know, we've seen Storm Spirits pull off more difficult games, but this is also a Storm game that is not, I think, nearly as set up as we've seen in the past. He doesn't have a friend. So I'm a little bit nervous for Infinity. As we usually talk about with some of these SA squads, they do like to overload their heroes. They like having someone do a lot of different jobs, usually in slew of lane advantages or draft advantages. It can be concerning at times, though, as the cut are more, you know, we're going to fight you whenever, wherever. They have a much less cooldown oriented lineup. And in the Lena pick, well, that Storm Spirit is also going to struggle a little bit more. I don't know how I feel about Lena as a hero in general. Definitely weaker than Storm, but in terms of the lane, it's going to do just fine.
Yeah, like you said, I don't know how you stack up the later we go into the game, but early on should not be too many issues. But now, looking at Infinity, As you mentioned, where is that damage going to come from? They still have their carry pick to work with here, but the heroes that are going to do enough damage where you don't necessarily worry about overly relying on the storm are going to need time to build themselves up, and the heroes that are going to be available to fight earlier in the game might not be able to stack up in terms of late game damage. So put yourself in a position here if you're Infinity, regardless of which of those two tempos you want to play at, there will be some drawbacks. So see what it is they have planned. In the meantime, they're moving through the final phase of the bans, taking away the Bristleback first. Now, that's basically just a respect ban on Discourage. Really, no one else is running the Bristleback all that much, but I mean, you do have to respect it, right? Scourge on that Bristleback has been very impressive in the past.
Yeah, he's very scary. I think that's really the one in that he pretty much constantly has, where you give him the bristle, you give him 20 minutes to farm, he gets a Hood of Defiance and an Aghanim Scepter, and sometimes you lose. It's just that's just it. You just kind of roll your eyes at how basic it can sometimes feel, but that's all Scourge can need. I think it's mildly unfortunate that they do actually take away the TA here, just because I think that is in that same vein one of his best heroes. Of course, also talking about Scourge, you think about the Monkey King, you think about the Wraith King, you think about these very farm heavy heroes. I think another one they could look at right now is probably the Terrorblade. Infinity are really bad at looking at those illusions. Uh, I think that's probably where we could see him lie. Not to mention, he likes those farming heroes. He likes those heroes that just kind of go off to the sidelines while the rest of his team goes to play. But also, Tiny still there. I know Tiny got nerfed. I read
Hmm.
the patch notes. He certainly got damage removed, but seeing no Tinies in all of the games today, it's a little bit scary, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the only time we did see a Tiny, I think there one in
I think
game
it was
one.
game one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
before the patch
all the
even
way back
dropped.
one.
Yeah, a weird sort of turning point considering prior to that it had been either picked or banned in I think the most games compared to any of the other heroes. So Tiny was someone you could not ignore, and so far today it has been ignored as the final ban comes out from the cut, and it's going to be the Phantom Lancer that they ban away. Meanwhile, Infinity kind of stealing one there. The Wraith King was a hero that you were sort of talking about Scourge McDuck playing, and well, on the Infinity side of things, that still kind of fits Lumiere's playstyle quite nicely.
Yeah, and well, they're not going to pick Faceless Void now for the cut. Do they pick Medusa? Is that where this draft is really going to kind of end us up at? I mean, I think right now the cut would love a hero. Of course, I want to say way back when we always talk about Mars plus Medusa. No, the first anti mage of I want to say the tournament, but maybe one snuck through earlier on. But I think this is the first one that we've seen. Always banned out, always threatened, always taken away in that second phase. But we get to see our first anti mage. I'm so excited. I feel privileged.
And what a game to throw it out on as well, right? You got Storm, you got Wraith. Honestly, even someone like the Tide Hunter, right? He doesn't have a very large mana pool, and Ravage is a very expensive spell mana-wise, so Scourge is going to be able to do quite a bit to pretty much all the cores on the Infinity side. They've got to be able to maintain separation and keep him at arm's length, but that's not exactly something that you do against an anti-mage. He's just going to be right up in their faces really whenever he wants.
Yeah, I'm really kind of happy with the pick here. I think there is still the threat as much as, Anti Mage is able to kind of outpace Wraith King once you get later on those stages. Wraith King is a hero that builds for anti armor, he builds the AC, he builds the Deso, and that's something that you constantly have to be worried about as that anti mage. Not to mention, you have put a hard timer on your game's timeline here. If the cut lose before 25 minutes, Scourge McDuck is not going to have a moment to really come back and fix everything. And there is always that moment where you've got the bomb, right? You've got PP that is always going to be running at you in that backline. If you get him when he's tapped, he will be your damage source in these fights, but that's where the cut don't even want to think about that nightmare situation where the only thing they can rely on is getting that mana void onto PP to kill off these heroes. It's where you'd hope that the other four core members of the cut have a much easier game until that point, but it's where, anti-mage is certainly a gamble. We'll have to see if it works out here where Infinity, they want that much more clean cut, just abilities, ultimates into towers. That's Infinity's game plan.
They want to keep it straightforward. Meanwhile, for the cut, you would love, right, if any of those other members of the team can get their respective lockdown onto the Storm beforehand. That just instantly makes the fight that much more manageable for them. But to Storm, he's always sort of hard to lock down. If you can get it, great. We're talking about a completely different fight in that instance, but that's a big if. But they end up sort of relying on that more often than not. So we shall have to wait and see here. Game 1 of this final series getting underway. Both squads looking for some early smoke plays, and these smokes, at least from their initial trajectories, might end up running pretty damn close to each other. So we'll see if there's any sort of early conflict here. Genek and Bigot are going to be the ones to sort of meet in the river, and they immediately back away.
Ooh, they still
Cool.
might clash though, but you don't want to clash on the anti-mage and aid. Oh,
This is a little bit awkward. Ades is taking a lot of damage, and he's going to get taken down. Prada finds first blood. Lumiere, though, he's going to... No, he's not going to die as well. He gets the stick charge off. Never mind, he will still die. Scourge says no. Blinks forward, gets the vision for B-God to finish the kill, and... Boys, really? This is what we're doing now? A deny fight
they
between the
both have
wards?
sentries. And
That's
now they're
just...
gonna kill the ward, and then Overwhelm's gonna put a sentry up there, and you know,
Genek? Go for it? No, okay, he won't deny it just yet. So, at the end of the day, it was first blood to infinity. Lumiere does die afterwards, but they were able to get that sort of first kill into their own hands. So, Infamous will start off... Excuse me, not Infamous. I'm reading his old tag. Infinity will start with a bit of an advantage here as we get into the lanes.
yeah, I think also claiming one more bounty rune, but
Hmm.
that's about all that's gonna happen in that super early game. But game will more or less chill out now, I think.
Yeah, at least in this bottom lane for sure. Taking a look, got Prada and Lumiere. I suppose if Prada's able to actually just whittle down someone's strength that significantly, then Lumiere with the Wraithfire could try and do something. But really, you only make that play if it's guaranteed to get you a kill. Otherwise, I don't think Lumiere wants to take any time off from farming for himself right now. So that's kind of the way it often goes with this Undying. If you can set up perfect plays for your teammates, then they'll go for it. But otherwise, he's just here to create space.
Yeah, and that's also where, unfortunately, for Prada, both the Mars and the Shaman really do not care about him. I think both of those heroes win the straight-up man-fight trade, and if Prada isn't too careful, then he's just going to give away his life. And these are both heroes that really want to stay in the lane and beat you up. Even though Bigot has boots, it's really just so he has time to move around and doesn't have to be too concerned with the zombie catching up on his toes. And that's where Prada, once he catches him, he's got a little bit more of a shot with the Oov, but without boots of his own, Bigot will always be able to play with the range advantage.
He's trying to trade out some early damage so far. Meanwhile, take a look over at the other side lane. Mariano and Genek, not really sure there's a lot to do here in terms of harassing them. I suppose Scourge can try to get in there, burn away that limited mana pool from the Tide Hunter, but just going to be a bit of a rough one. Although, I suppose, if you do want to play a little bit more aggressively, you do have that move speed slow on a fully drained target, so maybe that could allow Scourge and Overlom to get a couple of extra hits in and try to harass the Tide Hunter that way, but that's assuming that you burn through all of his mana first, and you're not going to be able to do that without maybe taking one or two Anchor Smashes in return.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of the sad aspect of ever playing anti-mage versus an offlaner who's very comfortable with just playing at low mana. As bot lane, well, there you go. The Shaman, a little bit too far forward, gets taken out, and does give a whole creep wave of XP to aid, but same time, kind of unfortunate for that Shaman.
Yeah, and I said before, Lumiere wasn't really going to pull the trigger unless Prada had set him up perfectly, and that was a pretty good setup. By the time they actually throw the Wraithfire Blast onto Bigot, he is on a dangerously low amount of health, so if it's just going to be a hand-delivered kill brought to you, then, you know, your Wraith King will take time away from farming to just grab that one for himself, and this early on, the Mars really can't do too much to respond, so Infinity are able to get their second kill on the board, looking pretty good for themselves so far. Meanwhile, over in the middle lane, not a lot going on so far. PP and Kits are just kind of trading out right clicks and last hits, and this is part of the reason why you wanted this Lina in this position, right? In terms of long-term damage, that will very much depend on the itemization, but at least early on, your Lina can still find those last hits unless PP just really lays out to try and go in onto her. And even if that happens, see B-God is trying to get himself into position to maybe turn the tables on that aggression.
Yeah, and PP certainly has to be careful here. Everything changes once the storm hits level 6, though. Once you get that ball lightning, all it takes is a missed LSA, and then Kits is the one who's actually feeding. But at the same time, they pick it for the advantage in lane, just to have a stable hero choice for Kits to go into that mid game into. Not to mention, it's also a mid laner that gets BKB second item, which I think is something that they 100% value going versus the Tidehunter.
Ooh. Nice move there from Genek getting in to deny the water rune and even snags away the bounty, so there's no bottle refill for the Lina. And on the opposing side of things, PP's just topped off. He's still holding on to a water rune there as Giga does end up getting himself caught out down bot. Prada's the one to get the kill, so well, this has been a bit of an issue for the Shadow Shaman here early on. He's been hit up twice now, and he doesn't really have the best way to defend himself really at any point in the game, but particularly this early with no points in the hex.
Yeah, and hey, you could say tactical death every single time he does go down. Infinity end up nuking the wave. They end up pushing it quite heavily into the Mars. So Aid has gotten really a whole bunch of free farm, a whole bunch of levels, and BGod has been trying to sap as really little as possible. But that's where you know that once Aid gets level 6, then they go for a play, and then they give the Shaman back the lane. Everything comes in tow. But unfortunately, at the same time, this is a very free farm Wraith King. Lumiere has had really no pressure put out onto him. You can't really put too much pressure with the Helm of Iron Will already done, but it's still not the most pleasant thing in the world.
Meanwhile, Prada with an interesting rotation mid, just trying to protect maybe the rune spawn coming up at 6 minutes, but there's not a whole lot he can do here. The tombstone's coming back up. I suppose that could certainly be useful, but that would still require PP to make the initiation by himself. Speaking of initiation, though, Lumiere, without his support, all by himself down bot, dropping low. Prada, though, able to TP in, hits him up with the heal, drops down the tombstone, and they're thinking about whether or not they want to turn. Lumiere doesn't have a whole lot of health, so it would still be risky, and he doesn't have Wraithfire Blast for that matter, as he already used it. So, not going to go in. Just a nice defensive play there from Prada. You got to give up on whatever they were trying to plan mid, but keeping Lumiere alive is going to be worthwhile.
Really surprised that the Storm didn't actually TP there. I really
Mm-hmm.
would have sworn that PP would have wanted to get involved in that fight. Instead, he wanted to gamble on the runes, and unfortunately guessed wrong. So the Arcane goes the way of Kits. He doesn't get that play bottom. I feel like if the Storm TP's bot, he gets a double kill, but, you know, just me.
Well, I mean, I'm with you on that one. I mean, double kill, who knows? But, I mean, you could have gotten someone like B-God easily, considering how low he was on health, so maybe a missed opportunity, but the Storm doesn't really want to force himself out of the lane at this point. See where he goes instead, because he's kind of ready to go. Triple nulls, he's got the ball lightning. Maybe he can delay this a little bit longer to actually pick up his boots, but he doesn't have to. If he wants to make a move, he can go pretty much right now.
Yeah, and there's nice stacks being farmed up by Genek, or getting made by Genek. I'm just a little bit worried by the early passivity here, and I think with Genek getting more involved on the map, we could see him look for a little bit more aggressive opportunities, but I just want PP to be the one really looking for the plays here. You kind of just need to decide very early on with the Storm Spirit whether or not you're going to invest everything into farming or everything into taking out your opponents here. Just feels like we're in almost a little bit of a stalemate across the map here, while the Cut are getting their level 6s, they're getting their farm, and I think they're even out farming their opponents a little bit in every single way.
Here, meanwhile, got himself the armlet, so, I mean, you would probably still prefer to just sit back and continue farming, but if push comes to shove and you do have a fight forced into his face, as we've seen
There we go.
sometimes, it's enough as the fight's going to go down mid. Yet there's the jump in onto Kits, and, well, he's able to get a Laguna Blade kill. He will die still, but you find something. in return. That's going to be the most important part here as Mars just TP'd in. Arena's ready, but he needs to be able to get close enough to it, and that part's not really going to work. Even with low mana, PP was able to maintain separation, so at least you make it a trade if you're the cut, because Kits is pretty much doomed in that scenario. Too many heroes on him, so get a kill on the Genic. It's going to salvage at least a little bit.
Yeah, I think fairly easy, fairly nice. Aid would certainly love to get a little bit more involved in this game, but he's also going to have a blisteringly fast Blink Dagger here. I think he's going to greed out over getting the phase boots and finishing his wand. It just seems like it's going to work up in his build. At the same time, though, that's just the first of many plays that we need to be seeing from PP here. You always want to be topped off for that fight on the rune, just because a DD or an arcane simply changes the game, even a regen. But it's also it's a tough line to toe, and that's also where Scourge, well, looking top. He's got a 20 stick though, but I don't think he's really ever going to realistically die. It's just weird. It's such a slow early game. You're certainly building up speed on Infinity's side with the small items that you have been picking up, but it's where the longer this laning stage gets prolonged, it always favors the carry that is going to scale later, and I feel like Scourge is that carry in this situation.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one with the way that the game gets played currently, Wraith King versus the AM, but as you said, should still favor him, and it's going to be a nice play for the cut as they find another kill there. They take down Prada, but Kits has to get away. Big LSA to stun up PP, and now with Overlom coming in, this is going to get a little complicated, but Lumiere's actually pushed in as well. B-God not dead yet, thanks to the decrep. Once it wears off, though, entirely different story. Lumiere comes in, gets the quick kill, and it's going to be a trade-off of those supports, but now looking for the rune, and it spawns on the other side. Of course it does. If everybody's going top, the rune has to spawn bot. PP's the one to pick it up, and he's going to TP now. This would be big. Aid is not in the greatest of positions right now. They're going to hit him with the Wraithfire Blast. They'll pull him in now with the Vortex, and they should have the damage to finish him off. He drops the arena down, but the spear is dodged by the Storm. PP's finally able to make that move. Gets the rotation in. 2-0-2 now on your Storm, and a little bottle refill from Prada. Yes, indeed. So it's not going to get him all the way back up to full, but it's a nice sort of top off, and now PP can potentially make another rotation instead of having to go back.
Yeah, and it's that in between where you don't know that the Storm has the reset that free kills, like if perhaps Overwhelm gets a little bit too overzealous, is where you think the Storm is no longer a factor in the map, and then he suddenly is, and then everything comes up your way. But at the same time, spending time to farm is not a bad option either, because once he gets this BKB, there really isn't a good way for him to die in this game. Everything is based around really hitting off that spear. I think that's also where Aid, just now finishing his Blink Dagger, we're certainly going to see a lot more from the Mars in the minutes to come.
Now is his chance to sort of push forward and get more aggressive. For now, though, a little bit of an objective focus. They're pushing their way onto the tier 1 bot. Drop the Serpent Wards. They've got not the highest amount of points in Nether Blast, but they should still be able to do this. As a tier 1 tower will fall, but it may come at a bit of a trade-off, because over in the middle lane, Infinity are looking to make this 2-for-1. If they can get the tier 1s both top and mid, they're going to open up a nice bit of the map for themselves. And the cut, they can't really do anything. No one's here already, and they can't TP anyone in fast enough, so tower does get taken down, and Infinity get the better of the trade.
Yeah, I think they're very pleased with that. Not to mention, Mariano has not had to rotate at all. He's just been kind of chilling, doing his own thing. Of course, Lightning versus the Anti-Mage, once he burns all of your mana, he really doesn't have very much damage here, and that's your 4-man smoke. This is your core getting aggressive. They would love to find PP. That would be the chain kill. They need to find really a spear into either the LSA or into the Shaman spells, but it's a matter of how greedy they get here. And Genic is being very patient. It feels like they're very aware of what's going on right now, but PP?
Okay, they have the play. Can they kill the Storm? He is going to get double stunned up. Trying to keep him alive. They can't do it. There's just not enough support. PP's already dead. Prada looking to see if there's any chance to push back in. Lumiere thinking about it. They get the stolen LSA stun onto Overlom. They have the Wraithfire Blast. They're not going to need it, though. Actually, they already used it. Excuse me. But either way, they get the kill onto Overlom, and that's a trade, but you lost the Storm Spirit. Really the one hero on the map that you didn't want to get caught out in that play, and it's exactly who the cut were able to find.
Yeah, and really caught out right underneath their nose. And, well, they'd love to put a finger on a Scourge McDuck, but it's not really in the cards right now, even though they are going to smoke up. I feel like this is probably just got to be a turnaround towards mid. Not really, I think, too much worth hunting down this anti-mage because they are giving up a little bit of the lane turn now. They want to keep this mid lane in constantly. As long as this creep wave is in towards this tier 2 tower, they know that any hero that's going to try and make their way into the anti-mage's jungle isn't really going to be able to help him out. And in doing so, they really force this anti-mage into a hard position because he can't break away bottom, he can't farm his own jungle, and they're looking for Overwhelm. Oh,
Wow. They blow him up pretty quickly. PP doesn't even have enough time to sort of zip in for the kill, steal, and/or assist. So that is a downside here for your Pugna. He's not really able to survive very long in these fights. But now Scourge is still hanging out top. There's a couple of heroes nearby. I do not really know that they can do anything here, though. They can't pressure up Scourge, and with their creep aggro getting pulled away, they can't really even get much damage onto the tier 2. So bit of an awkward position for them. At least they have control of this jungle, though, so PP's just farming away on these camps.
now is Lumiere really just gonna Roche? I mean, he does have, oh, the Solar Crest. Oh, okay. This is an interesting turnaround because Mariano, he had that Blink Dagger queued up for a very long time here, but I guess they're saying that if their opponents are not going to fight them, then might as well just get a 14-minute Roche, and it's so early. The cut do scan it out, but it's not like they really can do anything about it without all their heroes already being placed in. And again, having that mid tower gone so early, they know exactly where their opponents are and where they aren't. So, I mean, it's extremely free. And they do Snake Warren's bottom, so somebody has to come, especially a ranged hero, just kind of make the trade worth it. But at the same time, this is just poke damage. Poke damage on a tier 2 that the cut, they care a whole lot more about getting this mid tower than they do the bottom tower, and it's where Infinity are going to continue to fight them. Prada would be a nice pick, though.
The
They don't want to
Hex.
use anything, though. They want to get this kill as freely as possible, but I don't know if this is going to happen.
And now Overlom might just get taken down. There's going to be the zip in. Doesn't really care much about the ward, and... oh. Unfortunate if you're the cut, but the good news is you only went in with your 2 supports, and as you said, they didn't really use anything, so losing that fight's not going to hurt them too much. It's just a bit of a missed opportunity, but now Gennett... oh! That is painful. Steals the blink, jumps out. Arena now on cooldown, and Ade's kind of wishing he could have that one back, because now without that arena, this push up top is going to feel a little bit more comfortable. They know there's not going to be any sort of TP arena play in from that Mars to stop them.
Yeah, and they get
Oh,
glyph for it.
kids.
Oh,
They're able to pull him in with the Vortex. Lumiere did get stunned up, though, and they will bring him down, but it's only his first life. He's back up at the Reincarnation. They're going to look for a bit of an easier kill here, perhaps, looking for B-God instead. And I say easier. They still haven't actually gotten it yet. Now the Ravage from Mariano connecting onto pretty much everyone. Scourge was able to come in, though, with the Mana Void, so they do get that first life. They'll kill Prada off as well, but at this point, the fight's kind of over. They use the Laguna, they use the Arena, they use their Mana Void. But at least they get something out of that. That could have gone a lot worse. They find a kill, they burn the Aegis, and they put Wraith King's ult on cooldown.
yeah, and they get ravaged, you know? At the end of the day, not the worst trade in the world for the cut. Still very scary. I mean, a 5-man ravage hits and you kind of, you know, bat an eye, but that was Kit's able to escape. I think if he didn't do such a good job of walking away from the fight, he would have gotten caught after his BKB. And I think specifically with the Storm Spirit, it took so long for the Aegis to actually be claimed that PP didn't really have a moment in the fight to play on either the Ravage or on the Wraith King spells. So it kind of ended up being a very messy engagement where nobody really got anything. But again, nothing will always favor the cut in this game. The longer this can go, the more we wait along this game, the more we're going to see Scourge McDuck feel like he can actually show up to that fight. And that was a fight that you surely didn't want to show up to, but not dying is also okay.
Battle Fury finished off a little while back, so that AM's farming rate is going to get accelerated quite nicely, but his team still looking to get some pickoffs, try and create some space as Kits broke the smoke with the attack there, so at this point he might just be sort of acting as the bait, but Infinity really aren't buying it. They're just pushing for the tower. They want the tier 2 top. They're not going to overcomplicate things here, trying to get aggressive or greedy. So, Hits is going to come to them. TPing top. He's in first. Tower already dead. Mariano, though, gets clipped by the stun. They'll hit him with the Laguna, but PP comes in, gets off the Electric Vortex. They've caught out the Lina. Kits, though, able to pop the BKB. Still fighting his way through this. Mariano's the one to fall. As Aid gets in, drops down the arena as well as the Spear stun. But now things are going to start to turn. Aid gets locked down, taken out. Genic was able to use the Stolen Shackles. Meanwhile, Scourge did throw down that Mana Void. It's a nice bit of damage onto PP, but it's not enough to kill him. And if they can't kill him with it, then that's kind of just the end of the fight. Kits runs out of time on the BKB, and Infinity eventually clean it up.
Yeah, again, a fight that I don't think Scourge wanted to show up to. On paper, you know, he sees a Storm Spirit without BKB with 500 mana. He mana voids him, but without him having that Manta style or really a Shackle to land and then blink on top of the Storm Spirit, has absolutely no control. Unless the Storm Spirit is absolutely tapped, I don't think Scourge is comfortable sitting in a fight that long. And that was a fight where they took out Mariano so convincingly and so early on. It's not a good sign. I think they're really going to need to see the cut dodge out these fights a little bit more desperately than they have been. I think Scourge might be a little bit too comfortable to show up to these engagements. While you look over at Lumiere, he is eclipsing everyone in net worth, and that is not a nice sight to see. Not to mention, do they ravage him? Oh, Mariano. He doesn't have Blink. If he had a Blink, I feel like they go for that, but this is another push that they're just going to kind of have fall in front of their laps.
Tier 1 tower should go their way fairly easily. Lumiere gets his Blink Dagger delivered, so now he's got a little bit more to work with in terms of forcing these fights if he wants to. And what a contrast in styles we're seeing, right? Lumiere has a Deso, has a Blink, has an Armlet. He's ready to fight. And his presence means a lot more to Infinity right now compared to the Anti-Mage on the side of the cut. So you can continue to press this advantage. And if you are the cut, well, can you really do right now other than just try and buy some time? But PP, he's got a BKB, he's got an Arcane Rune, he's got his supports right behind him. Genic's still holding on to the Shackles as well, so they just need to find a target, and what a target that would be. Kits gonna get pulled in, can't get off the BKB, the Shackles keep him locked, and ooh, that's not a kill you could afford to give up now, as the cut basically just have to fall back, and they're not going to let him. PP zipping his way forward. Gets onto Overlom. Pulls the Pugna in. Quick and easy kill. Looking for another. Jump onto Ade. No, not this time. Mars is able to get away. He's going to try for the zip. Or excuse me, not the zip, the TP. He does get out. PP needed maybe one more second for the Vortex. But this is Infinity's time to shine. Their time to push forward. And as you said earlier, the cut's time to maybe start ducking out of some of these fights as... Ooh,
he's got Shackle stolen. This could be big.
He's going to lose it in just a little bit, though. So if they want this play, they've got to make it now. They'll start off with the first stun. There's the second. Oh, my goodness. That is a stupid amount of range for the Rubik. The Aether Lens is just so big for him. As Scourge gets taken down, Prada will fall elsewhere on the map, gets taken out near that sort of middle lane. But if you're Infinity, you do not care. You will trade Prada for that Scourge kill every single time. So... big plays coming out from Infinity, and Lumiere is even going to steal his harm. Gets into that triangle, starts taking away the camps. What is coming out to him right now? That is a Shadow Blade, finished off in its entirety for your Wraith King.
Yeah, and as we usually talk about, Silver Edge is such an annoying item to play against, and that is their way to really put the nail in the coffin when it comes to finding this anti-mage. And look at the space created. This is all vision that he's trying to give over towards Mariano. Meanwhile, the Storm Spirit is making his own play. And I think B-God, if he's not careful here... Okay, he just got hit by a tower. No way do they go for this.
They're still dropping the Ravage. They are definitely going for it, and they've got it. Oh, that crit. The timing is perfect for Lumiere. Kits gets taken down, and... well, I mean, I was with you there most of the way through until that Ravage gets deployed. I thought they were just going to sort of scare him and back off, but... they see the opening, and speaking of openings, B-God gonna get hit up here. Will anyone follow? No, but they don't really need to. Mariano can just stand here and absorb the Shackles while his teammates continue putting some pressure onto the Tier 3 tower. This is not exactly a trio of heroes who melt their way through towers, but slowly but surely they're getting the job done. Someone's got to come and stop this.
Yeah, and it would surely be faster with Lumiere there, and, well, there's Lumiere, but he spent so much time off the map just forcing Scourge McDuck to hide from him, and now he returns, and Scourge McDuck is maybe 2-3 waves behind schedule. This is just kind of crazy. At first, you'd think it's a mistake from Lumiere, but in doing so, it's not like Scourge McDuck gets any farm in the meantime, and Scourge is a smart player. He knows that he is very killable in this game, like he just died before, but it's still just such a good forcing move from Lumiere specifically.
Hmm. Gets in there, they get the tier 3 tower. Now Lumiere can just back off and farm, and this is a okay, interesting move, probably the smarter one too. You see the BKB queued up for him before he looks for that sort of Silver Edge upgrade, because there is still a little bit of risk. Lumiere doesn't have the shard just yet, so haven't fully removed that mana cost, and you are still going up against an anti-mage, so get the BKB, maybe grab that shard at some point, but for now he's gonna go hunting, but this is a little risky. That would be pushing into pretty much the entirety of the Cuts lineup, so Lumiere's not actually going to take the risk. He backs off. While he does so, some more items getting picked up. Kaya Sange for your Storm Spirit. On the other side, though, that was a Shadow Blade pickup for Kits as well, and your Anti-Mage got his hands on the, on the completed Manta, so the Cut are starting to get a little bit stronger, and now they want to try and take advantage of this timing. They've got a 4-man smoke. Kits is the trailer. See what they can find, although at this point they might have to start drifting towards the pit, because Roshan is back up. Aegis and Shard, both at the ready.
Earliest possible respawn timer. Gotta love that. And now PP. Oh, they're so deep right now. They love the Storm on the midway, but they'll look for Rubik instead.
Okay.
And now everything changes.
Found that kill. They get the Hex onto the Wraith King. Not really a whole lot to follow that up with, but just try and keep Lumiere at arm's length. This is a Wraith King with a double damager, and you do not want to get caught, but they are still pushing their way forward. They're in onto B-God first. They'll blow him up pretty much instantly. That should allow the Anti-Mage to fall back, but the problem with this, if you're the Cut, you found a nice kill on Genic, but this isn't actually going to stop the Roche attempt. Infinity can just go back into the pit, and whereas they go back in, the Cut had to completely back away from the Roche area.
Yep, now Roche just dies. That's going to be Lumiere's Shard slotted in. Doesn't even have to pay for it. I mean, it's exactly what you could possibly want here. And really, does this fix any of your problems? This is going to be a little bit of farming time for the chorus here, but nightmare situation. You see Anti-Mage and Lena going towards the same lane, and unless they're very obviously trying to kill someone, I think it's actually them they need to be scared. And
Lumiere gets the stun. Genic can follow up with the lift. He's going to steal the blink. That's not really important. What's important is they get the kill. But with Genic actually stealing that blink, he gets forward. He gets the dust down, so they see the Lena.
No way.
Can they actually do this? They need a little bit more. Kits is going to pop the BKB. He momentarily
He's got
a
Laguna.
little bit. He really? Oh my god, he does! Oh no. That is the ultimate just middle finger to Kits. Kill him with a stolen Laguna. Yeah, that's worth the laughing voice line at that point, but when he stole the blink, I did not think that was going to matter in the slightest, but Genic is just able to do so much on this hero. He's got 10 assists at this point in the game, so heal participation's up over 50%, and Infinity are reaping the benefits as they're going to go for the high ground once again. PP forcing the blink back from the Mars, but that just means they're free and clear to go after the Rax. PP, that is not a Rax. That is a very deep dive, but is there going to be any sort of response? They've got the Arena, but even if they kill him off once, he's got the Aegis, and now he's got the BKB. He's just going to keep all 4 heroes distracted. He may actually kill one of them as B-God desperately getting healed by Overlom. He'll live, but while they were doing all of that, all those shenanigans, the entire middle lane of Rax was taken, and now the bottom lane is under attack as well, and I don't really know if there's anything for the Cut to do here. They just have to watch their opponents walk away from their base.
Yeah, they still have Ravage. They have BKB flying out from Lumiere, if that's what he decided to actually buy out, and it is. I mean, this game is a nightmare situation, and it's funny, as we usually see with the Storm Spirit, PP has too much farm. He has not enough slots. He wants the nulls in instead of any item he could possibly buy. You know, Ags might change that a little bit, but okay.
Mirror's in. Genic pops the Laguna onto Scourge. Not a lot of damage, but they are still trying to keep this fight going as the Mana Void will be deployed. PP, though, still going to work, getting on that backline. Lumiere gets taken down once, but the Reincarnation is going to bring him back up. He's stuck inside of the Serpent Wards. No, he's not. Able to just pass his way through with the BKB. And Infinity will reset this fight. Mariano is still holding on to that Ravage. The Blink's coming back up in 5. So the Cut have to be very cautious here, very much aware of their positioning. Gets PP. Okay. Zips in. There's going to be the Ravage deployed, hitting onto 3. They blow up Overlom immediately. Scourge can't blink away. He's dead as well. Aid will drop. Lumiere gets all 3, and that is GG called. Textbook execution from Infinity to close out this first game.
Yeah, just that easy. Scourge, I think, didn't want to show up to a fight, showed up to 2 fights. Nothing really happens. Nothing is supposed to be good news, but I think in doing so, he just displaced himself so far out of this game. At the same time, 24-8, the rest of the cut just were unable to make any plays happen across the map. We didn't see them really get too many early Coliseums. We weren't seeing them find those kills in the buy to just give them flat net worth. I think the cut were just playing possibly a little bit too slowly here. We saw their one kind of stint of aggression bottom lane where B-God was actually able to walk up towards that tier 2, but aside from that, I mean, just not enough plays made, I think, and not enough plays landing. You look at the KDAs across the board, I mean, nothing is looking too great. I mean, Overwhelm's part of 2 kills. Same with Scourge, I guess matching there, but at the same time, you look over at Infinity, who just had a very clean game, 14-minute Roche. Lumiere was everything they needed to be, way more active. I mean, it's just indiscernible, honestly. Just 2 completely different teams here. But I think maybe you ban out the Storm.